Hey guys, so this is a different kind of video. I thought that I'd just share what goes on in the chess lessons that I take with my teacher. His name is Midas and he's from the Netherlands and he's a national master in the Netherlands. So I've got an excerpt of the lesson that we had together just yesterday where I can show you now what we do and what I'm working on to try and improve as rapidly as possible with my teacher. So what we do is he'll pull up old games of mine and then he's developed some software which will analyze the blunders and pull out blunders. So you'll see what we do here is that we look at key moments in a game that I actually went on to lose, and we load them up and then we analyze them in quite a lot more depth. Okay, so sit back and enjoy, and I'll put the link to Midas's chess.com profile in the description. So if you're looking for a good chess teacher, then look no further. There are lots and lots of great teachers on chess.com as well. That's where I found him, and we're getting good results, so enjoy.
So let's go to the next one. So this is a puzzle 13. It's the next position where you made a blunder. Seems like you came back in the game quite well, actually, after you blundered the piece. So what did you play here?
Well, what I notice is that G3 is hanging.
It is.
So I think rook to E3 makes sense. Rook to F3 would be a big mistake.
Yes, okay, but E3 is hanging, but what else is hanging as well?
On my opponent's side, he's got the pawn on E6.
Yes, and we when possible we never like to give our pieces a defensive task. So yeah, some move like rook captures e6 would be the first thing that would come to my mind, because we activate our rook and then okay, we give up this pawn on g3 in return, but that's fine. We have some ideas to yeah, we actually attack another pawn even on b6, right? So we attack another pawn on b6 and then we also attack the bishop there.
And I
So
double my rooks very easily then.
So also in terms of forcing moves, capture is always more forcing to start with. Yeah, so actually, you played indeed rook e3 and rook e6 would have been the best one, and give white actually quite a large advantage. So yeah, he shouldn't take this pawn, and I think that's because you just simply capture here. And actually, yeah, where is this bishop going now? Can a bishop still be saved?
C8 is the only safe square. Well, C8, A6 as well. It's protected.
A6, yes, but if this bishop would go to A6, how would it be placed on A6?
Oh, yeah, it's not good.
Yes, it's actually in a very poor position, and yeah, also we have many tactical ideas right now. So we can, for example, bring in our bishop, attack the rook, and the rook has to keep on defending. Now, what move would you play here?
Rook F to F6 looks good.
Okay, it looks good. It attacks the bishop one more time. And what is the only square this bishop can go to?
Then it would be C8 next to the king.
Yes, and what would you play now?
Rook B8 looks interesting because it pins the bishop, but I don't think it's very threatening.
Okay, so it's threatening. It's spinning the bishop, and it's also threatening, rook f8 or rook c6 or bishop e6. So this entire position looks just very good for white. White has many attractive options also. Rook f8 seems like a very good move. So where should the black king go?
I would imagine probably e7.
Yes, and how do we win a rook right now?
Well, then it's, rook to f7 and the king's skewered.
Yes, exactly.
I was trying to avoid, because the bishop's guarding that square. So I was trying to avoid that. So it would have to be then c7 and escape to b8 and protect the rook.
Okay. Yeah, actually, to b8 is not really an escape, but okay, capturing this rook would be an escape after rook f7. Yeah. But how does white win in this position?
Win for white. Rook c6 looks very natural.
Yes. And what material are we winning right now?
The bishop on c8.
Yeah, very good, very good. So actually, yeah, this would be great for white. Okay, so at this point, apart from bishop a6, does black have any alternatives?
Well, he's got bishop c8.
Okay. So what do we play with white? I think we are just winning.
Bishop d5 again, maybe.
Bishop d5. Yeah. So what reply would you expect?
Rook a7.
Rook a7, and here we actually reach exactly the same position as before, right? We had this position already on the board. So after bishop d5, let's say rook c7, does this make it better? Or king c7, excuse me.
Well, we don't have the rook on f8 at this point.
Yeah, so how can we at least win material in this case with white?
Well, my bishop's looking at the rook, so I'm looking at like rook c6 and then maybe a discovery. If I can capture black's rook without losing my own, that's what I want to do. So
yeah, and okay, maybe even if a discovery is not possible, we can just take here and we win a pawn, and maybe we win a second pawn. So yeah, everything is looking very good here for black and or for white, sorry. But I think the most critical variation after rook g3, rook takes b7 is king c7, right? So here black is immediately going for the attack, trying to keep his bishop on a strong square where it's still attacking. But what would you play here to try and simplify the game and go for a win?
I'm a pawn up, and he's got double pawn, so I'm actually in a stronger position.
Yes, yes.
Could play king h2. That's a bit slow.
Which move? Sorry.
King h2, attack the rook, but that's not simplifying.
Okay, but yeah, actually, your own rook is also under attack, right? So how could black win a pawn in this position?
With black, with oh,
Wait, sorry, what did you say?
so is it black to move?
Yes, after king h2, it's black to move. So how would you try and win a pawn?
Rook takes g2.
And
then rook takes, then bishop takes, rook.
okay, yeah, bishop takes rook is possible, yes, or just king takes b6. This would also win a pawn.
Yeah.
So if you look at the most forcing move in this position, what is the most forcing move that we can make here with white?
Well,
we can actually just win a pawn by force with a long forcing sequence.
All right. I'm thinking, well, rook h6 looks obvious.
Okay, but this is not so forcing, right? So we give our opponent some time to try and threaten something, to try and stabilize the position. And yes, actually, we still have a tactical idea if we capture the bishop. So what idea do we have?
Oh, there's a skewer. Yeah, I missed that. Yeah, so bishop d5.
Yes, and what would you play right now?
Well, yeah, I don't have to. I mean, I've got a check with the rook. I could play rook f7 check.
Yes, and this would be much better, right? Because this would even win the entire rook.
Yeah, so that would force the king to like b8, but then a check again.
Yes, and then we just win the entire rook. Exactly. So this is very, very strong. It's just game over right now. Yeah, so the computer here also says that, well, black should play rook b8 here because he doesn't even have time to take this pawn, because the white attack is so strong. And okay, we can simply remain this pawn up on e6. So yeah, rook e3 is really too passive. So we're letting our opponent get away with their weaknesses. And yeah, here e5 will be the strongest move, which is saving this pawn. It's protected now by the rook, and then our opponent has time, to keep his strong bishop here, to bring the king out and to activate the rook. So that's why it's a blunder. And yeah, actually in position 15, we have another blunder. So
how many blunders?
Wait, what did you say?
How many blunders? Normally I have like one or two.
Yeah, so okay, so my Python algorithm is actually quite strict on defining a blunder. So a blunder is a move where you are, more than 1 point worse than in the previous position. So a lot of the moves you made were kind of, let's say, big inaccuracies, or just bad moves, and not maybe necessarily immediately blunders. But yeah, well, very, very interesting to reconsider, of course.
Okay, so rook d8 played.
Yeah, rook d8 was actually the last move from your opponent. So so do you still remember what you played in this position?
No, not now. I mean, I would be tempted to look at playing rook e7 and fork the king and the pawn, so moving my bishop might make sense.
So what response would you expect after rook e7 check?
Well, I wouldn't play it straight away. I think I'd move the bishop first and then.
Why wouldn't you play it straight away?
Oh, I guess, yeah, the king can't come towards my rook because then he loses his bishop. So I was worried about like king d6, but
Yeah, then you could capture the bishop indeed. So so would you be happy after rook e7 and rook d7 to exchange rooks?
I think so. I mean, I think that in the white still looks good for an ending here because we've got 4 pawns against 4 pawns on the queen side, and I've got two on 1 on the king side. Well, yeah, on the king side, but and black has double pawns. So I think
yes, but you also have
advantage.
double pawns. And okay, so I would actually say that okay, an endgame wouldn't look great for you because if you look at all the black pawns on the queen side, they are placed on a5, b6, c5, and c3. So they're all placed on the dark squares, and you both have a light square bishop. So if your opponent ever manages to get something like bishop d1, bishop takes c2, well, the game is over. But also with such a pawn on c3, you have to watch out for some tactics like bishop a6, bishop takes d3, pawn takes, and then c2 runs, and he can make a queen. And also when you have, this 2 against 1 pawns on the king side, because your pawns are doubled, it's hard to make a free passed pawn. So I would say that your chances wouldn't look great necessarily if you trade the rooks. Also, I noticed one other thing that is very interesting. So my first instinct in this position was to play the move rook h5 with white. But what do you think that black would play after rook h5? Black has a very nice move after rook h5.
Oh, maybe your idea of like rook takes d3.
Yes, exactly. Rook h5, rook takes d3, and you cannot take it because c2, and the pawn is unstoppable suddenly.
My rook would take 2 moves to get back to defend, and he doesn't have 2 moves.
Yes, and after your opponent would continue with rook d2, rook takes c2. Sense. Okay, it's let's just see how the computer evaluates this position. So I'm still unsure, if rook e7 and trading the rooks would be a good idea. And I think possibly it could be, because I'm also thinking, well, you can also try to put your bishop on f3, try to exchange the bishops, and then your bishop is also quite a good defensive piece. Let's just see what the computer says. Wait, I have to go here. 15. I think it's this position. Yeah. So what you've played was bishop c4, and the best move would have been bishop c6. And actually, bishop c6 would be the best reply for black. And okay, actually, king g1 would have been the best move. Of course, this blunder finder, what it doesn't tell you immediately, it's why a certain move is good. But actually, it feels like in this example, what the computer says is, well, the king has to be ready to, let's say, join the action where all these pawns are. And when you are playing with your bishop, you're giving your opponent some time to activate his rook and try to attack your pawns here. And this position is equal according to the computer, because you just have to give some checks up and down to avoid that black will enter the position with rook e1. If black will enter with rook e1, he will put his rook here and you will lose this pawn. So this is very important. This pawn is really key in the position. And yeah, right now, when you look at the position and you realize that this pawn is key, it makes some sense that you want your king to be close to be able to defend. So you prevent some rook d3 ideas if your king reaches the e2 square, for example. And you also can defend the rook from entering on e1 or f1, which gives your rook again the possibility to try and hunt other pawns. So quite deep idea again by the computer here.